Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Schools, Regional 1, and much more tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by a roundtable of journalists talking about some of the biggest stories of the week. Toby Sells is news editor with the Memphis Flyer. Thanks for being here again.
Thanks for having me.
Laura Testino is a reporter with the Daily Memphian. Thanks for being here again. And Bill Dries is a reporter with the Daily Memphian. We'll talk a ton about schools. We'll talk about Regional 1. We'll talk about Wanda Halbert and $7 million that didn't get charged. We'll talk about a bunch of things. But Laura, you have been all over a messy set of stories at Memphis Shelby County schools without having to go back into, Marie Fagans was fired. That has happened. Let's start with what happens next, maybe in terms, there's an interim. So what does that mean? And is there going to be a search and all the kind of forward-looking things, because the story's not over, separate and above the fact that Marie Fagans is likely suing for back pay and so on. We can put that aside, but in terms of kids learning, the board, the superintendent, what happens next?
Yeah, so we have interim Roderick Richmond in place as superintendent now. He seems poised to be the superintendent for the rest of this school year. He talked about making a 100-day plan that, supposedly then if he gets to apply, gets to be appointed to be superintendent, that would take effect 100 days from now. We're in May, so we're past testing for schools. We're really, essentially at the end of the school year at that point. And for the rest of the school year, that means that he will probably have quite a bit to say in terms of what the budget looks like for this upcoming school year. We also know that the county commission is counting on the district to produce a facilities plan. So, should he want to move on that, he seems poised to be able to have a strong voice there. And a little bit about who he is. He's been in the district for about 30 years as an education administrator, got to central office just before the merger. And he's been open about his aspirations to be superintendent for most of that time. Has been a finalist in Jackson and Nashville for their school districts as recently as 2020, and was rumored to be kind of in the wings, if you were, when Dorsey Hobson was selected after Kreiner Cash resigned in 2013.
Dorsey Hobson, a former superintendent.
Yes, former superintendent, the first of the merged district. So this is a role he's wanted for a while, and there will be some big decisions for the next 3 months.
Was he in the mix in the round that hired Marie Fagans? Was he a finalist?
He was never a finalist for the most recent rounds of Memphis's searches, but he did apply.
Has the board said they're going to do a search, not do a search? Do we know?
They have not said. They have said that they will decide that publicly in some way, but that's certainly a departure from 2.5 years ago when Joris Ray exited the district. Almost immediately, Michelle McKissick, who was chair at the time, said, "We are doing a national search and we are starting."
Yeah. So many questions. Let me go to Bill, because you've covered education off and on for many years. We've had many superintendents at this table, back to Kreiner Cash and Dorsey Hobson and others, Joris Ray, Marie Fagans. I guess maybe you did that with me. But your take, before we go into some more details about vouchers and state takeovers, just your take about how this went down and where they're going next.
Well, the school system, let's be clear, has had storms in the past. Has had stormy meetings in the past. This is still new territory, though. In the past, you had superintendents leave who maybe didn't want to, but they got a contract buyout. That was the case with Kreiner Cash. That was certainly the case with Joris Ray.
Under fire for accusations of poor behavior with staff members.
Yeah, in the case of Joris Ray, in the case of Kreiner Cash, you just had a new combined school board that didn't see things the way that he did.
Come back to you. Lots of talk about the state takeover. Cameron Sexton, the Speaker of the House, other Republican leadership at the state have talked about we may need to intercede. Bill and I interview for a show next week Mikkel Lowry and Brittany Thornton, two members of the County Commission, both of whom talked about they don't want the state to take over, but they are very interested in the County Commission having more responsibility and more power over what they can do. We had some Republican members of the County Commission on before Marie Fagans was fired who are not happy with that process. I've heard very few people who are happy with the process, even if they like the outcome. So where do you think things stand in terms of the state and County Commission and like it seems like a shakeup of who's in charge. I don't know if it's inevitable, but it's very much under discussion.
Sure. I mean, talks of takeover of Memphis School District, even Nashville School District, have percolated amongst the legislature for a really long time. I think that what we're seeing right now is that this is more acute and maybe like the highest support that it would have locally. Typically you say state takeover and people are going to say no, like we're local control, local school systems, right? But in Memphis, people are really that frustrated with what has happened. And so what Mark White has said that he will introduce are potentially two pathways. One that would mirror legislation in Texas that allowed for the takeover of the Houston Independent School District. With that, you see the ultimate takeover control ceded to the state's Commissioner of Education. Here, that's Lizette Reynolds right now. And then establishing a state-appointed board of people who he says will be Shelby County or Memphis residents that are an advisory board that says, okay, now is the time to take over and we're watching. Another piece of that would just allow the state to directly appoint school board members or superintendents, and that mimics legislation that we saw lawmakers call that nuclear option back in 2022 that ultimately didn't make it out of committee.
And again, we're going to try to get some board members from Memphis Shelby County Schools on in the coming weeks, so we hope to have them. Toby, your take on where we are, where we're going, the whole situation.
It seems like a dangerous precedent, especially for somebody who loves local control. I think state lawmakers, they have a wary eye when they look at the federal government. And I just think that we've seen time and again how state lawmakers want to step in Memphis, and boy, this would be really, really stepping in to give not only guidance and help, but a total takeover. I think it would be probably embarrassing for a lot of folks, and who knows what that would look like and how it would be run. But I mean, it sets a dangerous precedent for every school district down the road, so I'm looking out for it.
Yep, Phil.
The interesting thing about this is something else that the takeover talk is causing, and that is Lee Harris, the county mayor, went to Nashville Monday to basically try to talk White out of it.
Mark White, the state.
Mark White, the state House sponsor. It didn't work, but it's kind of put other options on the table. The talks around this are probably going to be broader than just who would get appointed to it. There are going to be things like vacant schools. Could those possibly be freed up to charter operators? And what we heard on the show that will air next week.
Yeah, those vacant buildings, when you got county commissioners who have vacant buildings or potentially vacant buildings, they can become blighted, they could be put to other use. That, when we had Marie Fagans, the former superintendent on the show, they were getting close to the end of this big multi-million-dollar assessment and kind of inventory of all the buildings, empty, used, underutilized. Mm-hmm. And that's been a topic as long as we've been doing this show, this state of these. So
the district approved under Tony Williams $2 million to do a complete assessment of all of the buildings. To basically say, here's how well the roof is, here's how much it would cost to replace it and get it up to par at every single school building. That was completed, and about a week before board members initially, put up the resolution to suspend her, I asked her, will you release this data set for the community to see before you release a plan for closing and consolidating schools? And she said no. She said she would release those together. And so perhaps that will change under interim superintendent Richmond. Perhaps we will see what that data set is. I've certainly requested to look at it, but we will know more about that there. What already exists in recent years in the legislation is that the district has to offer first right of refusal of its vacant buildings and even underutilized buildings to charter operators. And so that's something that they have to submit every year. to the state, and charters can then know what they might be able to use in terms of the district's building assets.
We also, there's a bunch more education stuff. We won't get to all of it, and you've been killing it writing about it, and other people have been writing about and covering these things, and we're not going back. I mean, people aren't clear what happened to Marie Fagans. You've written about it extensively. We've done shows on it. So we're going to go there. But which of you wants to take school vouchers? Do you want to start, Toby?
Education expert, no way.
No, okay, so we're going back to Laura on school vouchers passed, as we record this Thursday morning, passed the House, almost certainly, I mean, highly unlikely it won't pass the Senate later today or tomorrow. What does the school vouchers program, this has been an absolute priority of Bill Lee since he was elected. He started a pilot program. This is a bigger one. What does it mean for Memphis and Shelby County?
Yeah, so the expansion will take off some income caps that exist in the pilot program that's currently operating in Shelby County and Davidson and Hamilton counties, and it will just also be larger. So you'll see more people eligible for it. The fiscal note on the bill anticipates that about 66% of the users are kids who are already in private schools. So this is not limited to you have to have been in a public school already. And then, related to that, the bill supports $2,000 bonuses, one-time bonuses to teachers, but in a bit of kind of political maneuvering will require, should this version pass, that school boards pass resolutions in support of the voucher legislation in order to get those one-time funds. We saw across the state school districts in urban, suburban, rural settings almost completely pass resolutions against this legislation last year. So to ask them to turn back around and write these resolutions in support for public, in order for public teachers to get bonuses is really notable.
The voucher is worth what to a family that's eligible?
I believe $7,100 first go around, which is similar to the base amount that a student would generate in state funds under the new funding formula. And
the suburban school districts were not in favor of this, but seemed in the last week to sort of accept that this is an inevitability. That's an impact. They had really fought against it because they could see drains to private schools from their clients. MSC, in all the feuding and fighting, I assume the board and the administration was opposed to this as well, of the big school district of vouchers. Yeah.
Yes, they've come out against it. They've sued before it the first time.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Midway through show, more on that. We'll be covering. Flyer will probably be covering all that. There were other things that happened in the schools, but turn to the Daily Memphis, wherever you get your news in, you can read about some other just problematic things that have been going on that we will continue to cover. Let's stay with the state, Toby, and go to immigration. Obviously, immigration became, we don't do a lot of national kind of stuff, but the priority for the Trump administration, the new Trump administration, and already it's talking about trying to get local law enforcement. I think in Chicago is one of the places where they really pressed, but it seems likely all throughout the country to get more local law enforcement involved in rounding up and deporting illegal immigrants. Whatever that criteria is unclear. The state kind of jumped in this last week to support those initiatives.
That's right. And what was once just bluster behind a podium at a rally somewhere is turning real. You've got states just like Tennessee all over the country that are starting to figure out how to mobilize to get whatever President Donald Trump's plan on this is going to be. And in Tennessee, that looks like Governor Bill Lee wants to put together basically an ICE immigration enforcement agency for the state of Tennessee, and they're talking about it right now in that state voucher special session that they're having up there, how to get this thing funded. I think it's like $5 million is the fiscal note on this thing. What that looks like, who would it be? Would it be that money go to local law enforcement and set up agencies inside that? Would it be its own special thing? We don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but it's becoming real. This thing that, again, that we thought, man, that sounds awful, and other people worried about, and folks are worried. You look around on the internet, you look at different advocacy groups for immigration around Memphis, and people are starting to make real world decisions and plans based on what's coming. They don't know what that is, and I think that's pretty scary.
And to be clear, again, we don't do a lot of national stuff, but I've been following this, and there were thousands, hundreds of thousands, people deported under the Biden administration, under the first Trump administration, under the Obama administration. What's going to be hard to see is how much of this is more of the same with a lot of noise and a lot of fear and a lot of examples, or is it just going to be a continuation? I mean, is it going to be a whole new level?
Yeah, and if you look at what happened here, when Trump took office in the first term in 2017, you had two very large protests here. One of them was the Women's March, which was part of a national effort. The other significant march here was among the immigrant population locally, who were, number one, really scared about Trump coming to power because of statements he made then about immigration.
Yeah.
So this is round two.
Yeah. We'll be tracking that as that, again, with the local impact. Lots of people covering, obviously, the national kind of what's going on with the new president. Let's go to Regional 1. Bill, the Regional 1 has been pursuing, Dr. Reginald Coopwood, the head, the CEO of Regional 1, been pursuing a sort of $1 billion investment of rebuilding the campus, the Regional 1 campus, more ties to the UT Health Science Center. And then kind of seemed to me, at least suddenly out of the blue, they bought a site on Union, and they're now talking about building this, rather than renovating the existing very old buildings, building a new facility on the site where the Commercial Appeal used to be located.
Right, 495 Union.
Mm-hmm.
As those
have
of
you ever
us.
been there? I forgot. Have you been in that building at any time in your career?
I have. I don't think I would be allowed in there now.
No, sir.
But yes, and Laura may be familiar.
Were you ever in the building?
I actually wasn't.
You
No,
weren't? Was it CA?
it had moved down
It
to
had.
Front Street by the time that I
Okay, so
started
you
in
missed it.
2019.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, rebuild has been the key phrase when talking about this whole project. The rebuild is off the table, along with 4 other parcels, in addition to the 2 that the County Commission put up the money for this week. That would be 16 acres, and that would contain the entire project now.
Yeah. They paid $22 million, I think, for the building and the land.
About 24 once you throw in the closing cost.
Okay. They're going to tear that down. So there's a
Right.
strange history, not just the history that you have and other journalists in town have of that being a Commercial Appeal building, but it was sold. The Corps of Engineers in COVID built it not as a hospital, but because it was kind of billed or
It was
seemed
an
to be
overflow
It was an
facility.
overflow facility for in case they needed it during COVID. I mean, I think even on the show that we taped this morning that will air next week, Brittany Thornton voted against buying the CA building site because 1, she felt like it was rushed and they didn't have enough details, and 2, they may have paid too much. And I think that's one of those things that people are going to get into. You're paying more than the prior owner had paid for it. They
Yeah.
put a bunch of money in it. Other thoughts?
This came up rather suddenly, and what it involves is the warehouse part of the building where the enormous press was, a 3-story high printing press was. That was being converted to self-storage units and was actually about 70% complete and scheduled to open later this year in the fall. And so there were negotiations
Yeah.
on that, and that was called off to make this happen.
Okay. The overall plan for the Regional 1, which is a multi-year plan. I mean, the county is committed, I think, $500 million over 10 years towards this rebuild. Reginald Coopwood seems surprisingly open and confident that they've been lobbying the state for $400 million over 2 years, and I think as we quoted him, seemed optimistic that they would be getting some significant amount of money. Then in 12 to 16 months, Coopwood expects to have architectural engineering plans for the new site, and the build time, and this is not happening around the corner, is something like 5 to 7 years. That is shorter than what was expected if they were going to be redoing the Regional 1 existing facility.
Right, and the state funding, the original thought was that was going to be in this year's state budget. It wasn't, and in an interview on this show, Coopwood actually said the reason it wasn't was because the Lee administration decided to go for excise tax refunds,
Yeah.
which were an enormous
Yeah.
amount.
Yeah. Let's go. Speaking of excise tax refunds, and I'll throw this to Toby. It's kind of like a volleyball, lightly tossed over the net. That there was Wanda Halbert, the county clerk, came out this week. Sam Harmon, our staff, I think, had the story that $7 million in city auto tax that had gone from $30 to $60 in the budget that was approved in the summer to mitigate some of the big property tax increase has not been charged. And so there's $7 million that hasn't been charged. I don't know. I think they've started charging on commercial vehicles. I don't think they're doing individual vehicles. Wow.
Yeah. Not yet. This is a press show, and I will just say to Sam Hardiman, I think he got the quote of the year easily when he quoted Wanda Halbert saying, "I'm the collector of fees," and this is a story about how those fees aren't getting collected. And I think a lot of people looked at that story and thought, man, okay, yeah, this is your job. You saw the city council planning for months and months and months to put this fee in place. Why didn't you already contact that third-party vendor? Why didn't you contact this entity and that entity to make sure that when it was ready to go, that the fee was there? And she deflected and said it wasn't her fault. And yes, please.
And especially since this is the second time this happened.
Right.
When the county commission raised the wheel tax fee by $25, Halbert was part of those discussions and actually said, "You need to give me more notice." Well, this great public debate is going on, and she missed about the first 2 or 3 months of that fiscal year.
Yeah. And I just wonder about recourse. I mean, we missed $7 million. I know we can move funds around and make the budget whole and all that, but who's holding the buck here? Who's going to stand up and say, okay, there was miscommunication, this was actually my fault, I'm going to take some of this burden and make it okay? Or are we just okay with this mediocrity? I know we've tried to, a lot of folks have tried to remove Wanda Halbert from office a couple of times. I'm not saying that necessarily, but let's have some consequences in whatever happened. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not that smart, but I do know that I want to see somebody have to stand up and say, okay, yes, this was me. I mean, if we're shooting for excellence here in Memphis, I mean, we can't, just allow mediocrity to be passable, I think.
It is interesting too when you circle back to state takeover of the schools. David Bradford, county commissioner, was on the show some weeks ago, and we were talking about possible state takeover at that time, and he brought up, the state tried to intercede on County Clerk Wanda Halbert, and we're still in the same boat. And this is before the tax thing came out. Two different special prosecutor type situations have come in. I don't think it's technically a special prosecutor, but 2 attorneys were brought in. Both cases were thrown out. The state has not been able to rein in or make change or have recourse or accountability with
the attorney
Wanda.
On the second is appealing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It's still going on, but it was an interesting admission of the state can say these things, but not always do what they set out to do. Same thing. We've talked with Steve Mulroy, with Brent Taylor. The effort by Brent Taylor to get DA Mulroy removed. There's lots of talk about the legislature of, well, are we really going to do that thing and remove one person? They might. I mean, it could certainly happen, but it's interesting.
One elected person.
One elected, and Wanda Halbert elected by an overwhelming number, really a second time, even when some of these things were happening in her first term. Also, awful story. Memphis Animal Services had a distemper outbreak, led to 100 euthanations. They've not been able to bring new dogs, new animals into the facility. I think Jody Callahan covered that for us. I don't know. I bring it up because it's just such a depressing show as it is.
Well, this is another agency that has certainly had its share of problems recently leading up to this.
Yeah. With a minute left here, what's flyer stories, other things we've missed here that you guys have? You had a Sam and Dave, right? Sam from Sam and Dave covered this week.
That was last week, and a great music story from our music editor, Alex Green, did a great job on that. Right now, we looked at another hard-hitting flyer cover on podcasters in the city. You won't believe how many podcasts are out there in the city. Everything.
You didn't talk to me. I have a podcast. Okay, Toby.
I tried. It was our editor.
It's been fun having you on the round
okay,
table.
Guys.
Boy, it's too bad that you
everything
can't
from
be here again.
Grizz, cemeteries, local politics and news. I mean, if you want it, it's out there. It's great.
Laura, I mean, what are you looking for next from the school system and the schools? It's an impossible question to answer. You have great sources, and I'm not asking you to give away, but it's just sort of the what next of Richmond's term, I guess.
I think that the public response here is certainly going to be looking to see what happens at the legislature, but also what they do with the search. Are we going to get drugged through that process, or are we going to have an appointment?
Yeah. One last thing, with a minute left here, I've been out and about, and a number of people have asked me, Bill, and we talked about this. Your voice has been roughed up. You actually took about a 6-week break, I think, in the fall. You are fine. You are healthy. Your voice is roughed.
Yes, it's my vocal cords. It's an infection.
Yeah.
I'm taking drugs legally. We even had a scan of my neck.
Yeah.
It showed there's nothing in my head.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it too. The home remedies, I think I'm going to hold off on some of those for now.
Yeah.
If it's
Well,
okay.
I really, it's been from a place of care that people have asked me, is Bill okay? Is anything wrong? And so, not to get too personal with it, but I thought it was worth telling people that you are doing fine and your voice is roughed up, but is actually getting better. Anyway,
this is
that's
better.
it. This is better.
Believe it or not.
This is better. Again, I mentioned county commissioners coming up next week. We've recently had Mulroy, we had Brent Taylor, London Lamar, we had some city council folks on, we had other county commissioners on. You can get all those at WKNO.org, or you can look for Behind the Headlines on YouTube. You can also get the shows as podcasts through wherever you get your podcasts, because I am sometimes known as a podcaster, Toby. I just didn't know you knew that. I also have a podcast
Next
on
time.
WYXR.
Next time.
But anyway, that's fine. It's okay. That's all the time we have. We'll see you next week. Thanks.